Hi guys, welcome. Danny here from the Magic Junk Drawer. So I got a question about how I mentioned one time about rewriting your life and how we can work with this technique. So what I do, because I'm kind of all over the place and scattered, when something pops up into my head that was unpleasant. So one example would be, and I've mentioned this before, there's a video on my channel I think it's called How Peanuts Stole My Spotlight. I think that was the name of it. So to make a long story short, what I do here in this situation is in my head, when it pops up, I change what actually happened. So what they say is subconscious mind works on pictures. It doesn't respond to negativity. It doesn't respond to, it responds to pictures, and it doesn't know what the truth is. So you want to reprogram your subconscious. It doesn't matter if it didn't really happen. You're just convincing your subconscious that it did. Nobody else has to believe it. And I don't talk to random people about any of this stuff, because even with the manifestation process, people all have their opinions, and you know what they say about opinions? So it's best to keep it to yourself, work on what you're working on without everybody else's 2 cents. When I think I was about 4, I was in a dance recital, and it was ballet and tap, and they put us in height order, and I was the second shortest. So the one girl in front of me was Peanut, and Peanut had a very large personality, and she reminded me of, if you remember the show, it was Good Times. Janet Jackson played a girl named Penny. She wore her hair up in a little ponytail up top. That's what the girl reminded me of. They used to call her Peanut. I don't remember. I want to call her Penny, but I think that I'm just associating her with the Janet Jackson character. Now, I don't remember anything about the routine. I remember being on stage. I don't remember anything about my teachers. I don't remember not one other girl or in the dance recital. I only remember Penny, and this is what I remember. The final song that we were to dance to, they needed one singer, and I wanted to sing the song, but I didn't have the nerve. So Penny was like, me, I'll do it. And she sang it. And I mean, from as, I had a record player when I was little. I couldn't read. I was like 3. But I knew the different records by the color of the labels. Like, I knew that the Cher record had a rainbow on it. It was a black label with a rainbow. I knew that the Grease record had like a pig on it. It was RCA. It looked like a pig. I don't know what it was. It looked like a pig. So that's how I knew it was Grease. I couldn't read, but I knew how to differentiate the records. And I was singing and dancing all day. So to me, I wanted to sing that song. But I didn't open my mouth, and I let Penny, Peanut, whatever, have it. And it's something that has stuck with me for all these years. Had I raised my hand and did it, maybe my life would have been different. Not just in the performing aspect, but in every way. Because it was like, that was the first time I let somebody be better than me. And then it was from that point on that everybody was better than me. It didn't matter what we were doing. I never raised my hand and offered to volunteer for anything because I never thought I was good enough. I always thought there was a Peanut there that was going to be better than me. So, of course, after everybody made such a big deal, Penny was so cute. She was this, she was that. She sang so good. Listen, we were 4. How good could we possibly have been? But that's not the point. In my head, it was very important. So what I do when this story comes up is I try to change it. And when I hear the song, I try to imagine myself being the one center stage singing it so that I can convince my subconscious that I did it, that I am good enough, that I am capable, and nobody can take that from me. So that's how you rewrite the script. So there may be other situations that come up. Another one that comes up for me all the time is the seesaw. When I was little, I was much smaller than all the other kids. They used to hold me on top of the seesaw, and then they would get up and I would slam my ass down on the floor, and it was really painful. And they would always promise me that they wouldn't do it, but they did it every time. And I would never do that to somebody because it's mean, and I was never mean. But I would get very aggravated with myself looking back on it because I'm like, why were you so stupid that you allowed this to happen? But I did over and over again. I didn't want to not go on this thing because I didn't want to let them down. And I wanted to trust them, but they weren't trustworthy. So there you got another thing that was programmed into your brain. People aren't trustworthy. People will lie to you. People will tell you what you want to hear, but they won't live up to it. So it's no coincidence that I brought a lot of that into my life. People promising me things and then not living up to it. So you got to go back and change that. You got to think to yourself that people are trustworthy. People always took care of me. People always stuck up for me. People always stepped up to the plate for me and did things for me. Like, you have to try to change those scenarios. And a lot of things go back to childhood. And I said earlier in one of the videos I did earlier in the week, I don't really subscribe to blaming our parents for everything. And because I do think that for most people, parents did the best they could. And they weren't always so educated back then. I think now we know a lot more. But there were a lot of things growing up that have shaped the way we think and believe today. I was the first child, so I didn't have anybody to play with. And I always wanted to play with my mom, who was always too busy to play with me. I don't really have any memories at all of my mother playing with me, ever. Every time she had something to do, she had to vacuum, she had to clean the bathroom, she had to make dinner. She never had anything for me to do. Now, when my brother was born, I was there. So if she wasn't playing with him, I was. Somebody was there. I was always told that something was always more important than me. Ha. So what happened? Spent my whole life having something else be more important than me. Now, I understand my mom, it was very important for her to have a clean house, a clean bathroom, and dinner on the table. But I grew up thinking that I wasn't worth anybody's time because that's what was being told to me. I mean, it was a different time. But she would send me outside to play on the swings by myself. I was like a little kid. Like, I don't think you should let little kids go out by themselves on a swing set, on the street. But I remember being like 4 and being outside on the swing set playing by myself. I don't remember her ever being outside playing with me, ever. Because there was always something she had to do. She had to fold laundry. She had to clean the bathroom. She had to take a shower. There was always something that was more important than playing with me. So I learned at a very young age that I wasn't important. And that I came after a laundry list of things that had to be done. And then if there was time, which there never was, then I would get her attention. So I learned how to play alone. And I learned how to do things on my own. And I became very independent, which is good, but it's not always so good because, you want to have relationships with people and you really don't depend on people because people have constantly let you down because that's what you grew up believing, that it was more important to have the bathroom tile cleaned. It was more important to make sure the laundry was done. It was more important to make sure dinner was done at a certain time. And so it's no surprise that by the time I got to 12, I was already reflecting back in my life how other people, other things, other jobs, other situations were more important to me. Not just by my parents, but just in general. I wasn't good enough to sing in the choir. And then you get to a point where you don't even try anymore. You're not good enough for this. You're not good enough for that. Peanuts better, right? The laundry's more important. Susie Q is more important. The driving test is more important. Fixing your car is more important. Now this is what you believe because this is what keeps getting reflected back. And then you have to start to change that because otherwise it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. You have to come to a point where you're like, no, I'm more important because think about it. My mother only lived to 50. Do you think if you asked her right now, what was more important, playing with your kid or folding the fucking laundry? What would the answer be? But at the time, right? When you change the perspective and you look back on it, it's like, well, why couldn't I have let the laundry sit? Big deal. I could have done it when she went to bed. But that's not how they thought back then. So you want to go back to all these situations that made you feel like you were second best, like you were not good enough, like you were less important than the laundry. And you have to start to change them in your own mind. And you have to start to say things like, I'm so glad that my parents made time for me. I'm so glad that I had the best friends in the world that always took care of me. And you'll start to reprogram the subconscious, and you'll start to stop putting up with the bullshit that we've put up with. Because a lot of us have put up with a lot of bullshit, with people disappearing and people ghosting and coming back and excuses and nonsense. And you can change all that once you start reprogramming your subconscious. So it takes some work. You're not going to live to be 20 or 30 or 40 and have a whole lifetime of feeling like you're not good enough, you're second best, or that peanut is better than you, and then wake up one morning and think that you're Beyonce, because it's not going to happen. It takes time, but you have to start somewhere. And what will happen is you'll start to reflect things back to you slowly, and it'll give you more confidence. So when I first started singing karaoke, you have a few beers. I mean, there's pretty much nothing I can't do. But I remember, and this was before I started my voice lessons, I was doing karaoke. I was singing it, one of my signature songs, karaoke, and I was in the bathroom, and there were two girls in there, and they were like, oh my God, that's the girl with the voice. And they were like really complimentary to me, which nobody had ever complimented me on my voice. Actually, people always made fun of me. And it was something that growing up, I wouldn't sing, I wouldn't talk, I didn't want to open my mouth, I was embarrassed, I felt like everybody was better than me. And when you get into the teenage years, teenagers are mean, and they think it's funny, but it's not funny. It's not funny to make fun of somebody, especially when it's something that they like to do. I was never encouraged, and I was a grown-ass woman when I went in for voice lessons. When I started them, I was 29, and it was music school where you would wait outside the door for the one student to finish, and then you would go in. So I would be out there, grown-ass woman, after work, and there would be like little kids, like a little kid waiting at the door next to me with the violin, one with the clarinet on the other. And then one kid said to me once, what do you teach? And I was like, oh, I'm a student. I was a little kid, like 6. And they were like, oh, you are old to be a student or something like that. I was like, well, you never stop learning. But the point is that, everything is harder to do as an adult. When you're 6 and you go in there and you make a mistake, you wipe it off. But when you're older, it's much harder. It's also that kids kind of absorb things, so they pick it up quicker. It's much harder for me to break habits that I had for 29 years and get over things. And then having to sing my final in front of other teachers. I remember standing outside the room waiting for my final. My fingers and my toes were numb. And I was like, really, what am I so worried about? But it's so programmed in you that you can't do it, that changing that is very difficult. But here's the bright side, okay? So once you learn how to do something, and for example, any of the songs that I've worked on with my voice teacher, she would make me do, and when I first started, sometimes we would literally take a line of the song and sing that line over and over and over again. Sometimes it was 3 words until I got those 3 words right and I hit every note perfect. And she said that it was called singing it into your voice, which would mean that after a while, you wouldn't even have to think about it. Your voice would just know where to go, and your voice would go there. It was a very difficult concept for me to get because it had to do with my voice. And that was a huge block that I had because I was so programmed to think that I can't do it. However, years later, when studying yoga, same thing. These things get programmed into your body. So you may not do Warrior 2 for 3 years, but your body is not going to forget Warrior 2. So if you go into class 3 years later and the teacher says Warrior 2, your body is going to go there. Might not be perfect, but it will be damn close because your body remembers. Your voice remembers, your body remembers. It's the mind that gets in the way. So for me, hey, I was a cheerleader growing up. I'm Gemini rising. I'm very flexible. I can do yoga. I had no problem doing yoga. I had no problem doing anything because I was told I was good at it. When meanwhile, being flexible has absolutely nothing with being good at yoga. Nothing. The only thing the flexibility does sometimes is could make you too flexible and make some of your joints a little bit unstable and cause body pain. So it's not good to be too flexible. You want to find a balance between strength and flexibility. But we think, right? People always think of yoga being flexible. So here, now I went into yoga and I thought, oh, this is something I can do. Oh, look at how good that I can do this. And that was programmed into me. So I had two different things that I had to bring back. I had to bring back into balance. I had to learn that I could program songs and notes into my voice and that my voice would never forget them. And I had to learn how to find the strength in my yoga practice and not just go into my flexibility. And I had to learn how to not be so good, which there's no such thing. But at that point, when I first started doing yoga or started studying yoga, I thought there was good and bad. I had to learn how to bring myself back to balance in both of these situations. Hey, back out of that flexibility. You're pulling your hips out of alignment. And get out of your head because you have those notes programmed into your voice. And years later, if I haven't sung the song in 5 years, the song can come on the radio and I can nail any of those songs just like I did when I was with my voice teacher because they're programmed in. They're programmed in. You can always do it. Now, if you had a head cold, if you had a sore throat, okay, there's an obstacle there. But on any given day, you could recreate it because your voice doesn't forget, just like your body doesn't forget. So you got to go back to your thoughts about the activity, the person, the situation, and change all of that because it can all be changed. And sometimes it's things that you may have been overconfident with, like with yoga. Oh, I was a cheerleader. Oh, I'm flexible. So what? So what? Let me tell you something. As a teacher, when I go in and I teach a class and I give a modification to somebody who can't physically do the posture yet and they do it, that's the best thing ever because they're listening to me. They're paying attention. They're acknowledging that they're not there yet and they're willing to work for it. When I see somebody go in there and I'm like, grab your foot and they can't reach their foot, so they're kind of dangling their arm in the air, I'm like, you're not really doing anything. Why don't you take the modification that I gave you? People don't want to do it. Well, the person that takes the modification, that acknowledges that they're not there, always gets to the posture eventually. I've seen it a million times. So the person that comes in, and a lot of times it's men, especially big men that are very muscular, will have a very hard time bending over and touching their toes. Now, the first thing is bend your knees. You don't have to, locking out the knees is not a good thing. I don't know why people do it. We all do it. I used to do it. Bend the knees. Not a huge bend, but a little bit of a bend. But sometimes they can't even do that. They're like a good 6 inches away from the floor. But they keep coming and they don't give up and they know that they're going to get there. And then all of a sudden one day, this guy touches the floor. And that is such a sense of accomplishment for me because they've listened to me. They gave themselves the time they needed to get there. They gave themselves the opportunity to not be there yet and to work for it, not force it or muscle through it. And they accomplished it. somebody that comes in there that was a dancer or a gymnast that can touch the floor, you already can do it. What'd you learn? Nothing. So think of it that way. You have these obstacles and these things that need to be rewritten. You can rewrite them. You just have to spend a little time thinking about it. So one of the best things that you can do is, as you go through your day, see where these little things crop in. You know, like what's going to happen is, you know, like little things like standing in line at the grocery store. If somebody were to open up another register, and even though I worked in a grocery store for 7 million years, if somebody were to cut me off from behind me, I would never say anything. I would just wait in line. Now, I've learned to say something. Open your mouth, because I was next. And it might not seem like a big deal, but it is, because if you put yourself at the end of the line, the universe is going to put you at the end of the line. If you go to the front of the line because it was your turn, the universe will put you there. So you have to be really careful with day-to-day things. And it takes a little bit of time to get a handle on it. It's the same thing with, with everything as you go through your day. If somebody is going, like, if you're waiting in line at the grocery store and the person behind you has one thing and you're like, okay, go ahead, no big deal. That's different. But if somebody cuts you off and takes your turn and you allow it, you're not just allowing it for that, you're allowing it for everything. And if you don't think that it's true, I'm living proof that it's true, because it's happened to me over and over again. I always let other people take it. I let Peanut take that from me at the dance recital. I let people cut me off at the grocery store. I let people get away with bloody murder because I never knew how to stick up for myself, because I was always at the bottom of the laundry list. So you have to learn how to change that. Otherwise, you're going to continue to find yourself at the bottom of the laundry list. I promise you that much. What I also can tell you is that it is not easy when you start to change your behavior. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward, uncomfortable. You're going to hate it. You're going to be more comfortable standing at the back of the grocery line because you don't want to take your turn. It takes time, but it will work. Another thing that I don't have an easy time with is taking help from people. I don't like people helping me. I like to do everything on my own. Well, I had to learn how to take help from people. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. It makes me feel out of control, but I'm dealing with it. And that's just how it's got to be. And that we all need to do this, because if you don't allow people to help you, nobody will ever help you. If you don't allow yourself to be first in line, you're never going to be first in line. You're never going to sing the song if you don't raise your hand. So go through your day, notice these little things, right? I don't know if I'm good enough to get that job. I don't know if I'm smart enough for this. I don't know if I'm talented enough for that. My artwork isn't as good. My voice isn't as good. My body isn't as tall. I'm too short. I'm too this, I'm too that. And start to rewrite those things. As you think of them, go back and change it. Nope, my body is the perfect size. Nope, my artwork is better than everybody's. I am extremely talented as an artist. Stop it right in that moment. It takes time, but you'll get there. All right, let me know what you think, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.